Your Excellency, members of the Scottish Parliament, Moderator, Your Grace, Lord Lyon, members of the Consular Corps, Estonian Honorary Consul Peter Ferry, ladies and gentlemen, thanks to you all for joining us to mark Estonia's presidency of the Council of the European Union in Scotland. It is always a pleasure for our office to support the EU member state holding the EU presidency, and it is your support, can I say your continued support, that is again most welcome. We at the representation of the European Commission in Scotland are most grateful to Lord Carloway for having granted us the honour to mark the Estonian presidency in the majestic and magnificent surroundings of Parliament Hall. History, significant chapters of history, resonates in the very pores and timbers of this magnificent hall. And it will be the history of the last tumultuous months and of the few months that now remain as the clock ticks down to March 2019 that historians will pore over in years to come. In 2018, Estonia will mark a significant chapter in its own history, marking 100 years of the Republic of Estonia. Originally, Estonia had been planning to take over the EU presidency on the 1st of January 2018 and to combine it with marking its centenary celebrations. But with the United Kingdom relinquishing its July to December 2017 presidency of the EU, and with the United Kingdom stepping back from its role in shaping the EU, Estonia stepped in 6 months earlier than planned, which, believe me, is quite an achievement in itself. For Estonia and for those European nations who are intent on continuing to shape our common European project and make it work, we need to remember why Europe's nations chose to work together, why they chose to cooperate, and why they chose not to stand alone. To remember why more than 2 million Estonians, Latvians, and Lithuanians linked arms to form a human chain of freedom that stretched right down from the Gulf of Finland to the border of Belarus just 28 years ago. To remember why, only 5 years after Estonia's so powerful, yet so peaceful, singing revolution, why, in May 2004, crowds sung and celebrated in Tallinn, with crowds in Budapest, Bratislava, Ljubljana, Nicosia, Prague, Riga, Valletta, Vilnius, and Warsaw. Today, so much has been achieved by Estonia since it rejoined our European family of nations 13 years ago. Estonia, as the Cabinet Secretary has said, has become a role model, not only for the Baltic region, but a model of success for a small country way beyond its shores. Today, just mention Estonia, and you know, as the Cabinet Secretary said, you are talking about a leader of the IT revolution on a global scale. Today, as Europe's economy is finally bouncing back, Europe is more than ever open to business and is open to establishing even more trade agreements right around the world through open policy making that exports our standards, be they be social, environmental, data protection, or food safety requirements. But equally, just as the economic outlook has swung in our favour, we need to ensure that the EU's economic recovery and growth benefits all EU citizens. So we need to be clear. When some, not so far from Scotland, talk about having a bonfire of regulations that our Europe, our European Union, is not the Wild West. We need to be clear that our Europe is a social market economy where consumers are protected against cartels and abuses by powerful companies. We need to be clear that our Europe is where every country, every company, however big or small, has to pay its taxes where it makes its profits. Moreover, when the ambition of our friends from across the Atlantic looks set to collapse as America seeks to withdraw from the Paris Climate Change Agreement, our European Union continues to demonstrate its capacity for global leadership and is proving to be a strong voice for ambition. Our Europe protects our environment. Our Europe protects its workers and provides opportunities. Think alone of the 9 million EU citizens who have benefited from Erasmus since Erasmus was launched 30 years ago. Despite all the challenges, the EU over the last 60 years has helped to secure peace, democracy, and enabled our continent to prosper, simply by dint of EU countries working in close cooperation with one another. Many countries outside the EU still only strive for such achievements. So, however regrettable Brexit may be, Brexit will not stop the progress of the EU. Brexit will not deflect the EU institutions and the EU member states from moving forward together. The 27 EU heads of state have all signed up to the Bratislava Roadmap and Declaration. Now, as President Juncker has said, the wind is back in Europe's sails. In the words of the 27 EU heads of state, the EU is not perfect, but it is the best instrument we have for addressing the new challenges we are facing. Bratislava, this week's UN Climate Change Conference in Bonn, and this Friday's EU Social Summit in Gothenburg on fair jobs and growth all mark new milestones in the EU's development. And a significant new milestone and landmark in the EU's development will be reached when the 27 EU heads of state will meet in Sibiu in Romania on the 30th of March 2019. So, ladies and gentlemen, let us all thank Estonia, Prime Minister Jüri Ratas and his team for having piloted so successfully the EU presidency during these difficult but promising times. Tanan. Thank you.